There's an ill wind blowing this week as evil takes flight, and we look at the basics on the many fearsome Decepticon jets who have shared the name Dreadwing. The history of Dreadwing begins in 1988. This year saw the release of two new Decepticon jet toys, F-16 Fighting Falcon Dreadwind and Panavia Tornado Darkwing. These two figures could combine to form a superjet named Dreadwing. Dreadwind was characterised as a perpetually gloomy buzzkill who always looked on the downside, while Darkwing believed all life was suffering and was determined to make everyone around him feel worse than he did. The pair claimed to hate each other, but really they were a perfect match, each always trying to be bleaker and more depressing in order to one-up the other. Dreadwind and Darkwing were both Power Masters, Transformers who came with small partner minifigures that transformed into engines for their vehicle modes, which unlocked the toy's ability to transform. The duo's partners were aliens from the planet Nebulos. Dreadwind was paired with a rogue scientist, High Test, an overachieving perfectionist who couldn't understand the bot's constant misery, and Darkwing with the plain-talking but hot-headed thief, Throttle. The story of how Dreadwind and Darkwing became Power Masters was told in the Marvel comic book. Arriving on Nebulos in search of other Decepticons, the pair were poisoned after they unwittingly consumed toxic Nebulan fuel. On the brink of death, they were approached by High Test with an offer, in return for the Decepticons' help discrediting his scientific rival High Q. He and Throttle would bond with them as Power Masters, functioning as living batteries that would re-energize the two robots with their own bioenergy. The Decepticons accepted, and together the quartet proceeded to terrorize Nebulos, until eventually being driven off the planet by the Autobots. The Dreadwing duo continued to appear on and off right up to the final issue of the series in 1991, both in the American comic and in stories written exclusively for the United Kingdom's version of the series, selling their services to whoever would pay. Notably, they were hired to find victims for the robot-eating aliens, the Mechanibals, and they were employed by Megatron himself to recover the remains of the deceased Starscream. Dreadwind in particular would attain cult favourite status with UK fans when he became the longest running host of the British Comics letters page. Though released too late to appear in the Transformers cartoon, Darkwing and Dreadwind would feature in the 1988 Japanese exclusive sequel series, Super God Master Force. But in addition to slightly modified colours, both the characters and the Power Master concept itself were heavily reimagined for the Japanese market. In Japan, Power Masters were known as God Masters. Rather than Transformers bonded to tiny partners, God Masters were lifeless Transformer mecha that were controlled by human beings who used Master Force technology to transform their bodies into engines and become one with the robots. In this version of the story, Darkwing and Dreadwind were reinvented as Hydra and Buster, human brothers recruited by the Decepticons. Hydra was the elder of the two, a former actor turned underworld assassin who had the Godmaster power to manipulate lightning, while ex-DJ Buster could control the wind. Their giant jet form, meanwhile, was renamed Darkwings. They were a cruel pair who genuinely believed the Decepticons deserved to rule over humankind, and towards the end of the series, believing that their own humanity was holding them back, they even had Decepticon leader Devil Zed use his powers to turn them into pure robots. But even this didn't give them the strength needed to defeat their Autobot rival, Jinrai. Dreadwind and Darkwing haven't been major characters since the end of the original series, only popping up in very minor roles here and there. Notably, they've both appeared in IDW Publishing's comic books, and Hydra even made a background cameo in Transformers Animated. But their cult favourite status has earned them a couple of new toys. a new Dreadwind, a retool and recolor of Transformers Classics Jetfire, was available exclusively at official convention BotCon in 2007, followed by a recolor of Supersonic Bomber Silverbolt as Darkwing in the Transformers Universe line in 2009, though by this point Hasbro had lost the trademark on his name and had to rename him Darkwind. Most recently, a pair of new toys styled after the originals were released in 2018's Power of the Primes toy line, for which Darkwing was now renamed Blackwing. Like the original figures, they could combine into Dreadwing, and each could also transform into either an arm or a leg and merge with other figures in the series to form giant robots. Now, unlike Darkwing, Hasbro have been sure to maintain their trademark on the name Dreadwing by repeatedly reusing it on various new characters over the years, mostly unrelated to the originals. The first was introduced in the Transformers Generation 2 toy line in 1994, a triple-changing Decepticon who could become a stealth bomber and a tank. He came packaged with the jet fighter Smokescreen, who combined with him to complete his bomber mode. This Dreadwing was characterized in several different ways across different media. The profile on the toy's packaging described him as a heavily armed master of stealth. But Marvel's Generation 2 comic book maintained some continuity with the original Dreadwing by reinterpreting him as being a rebuilt, upgraded Darkwing. In Japanese media, meanwhile, he was presented as a slow-witted pacifist who had been duped by Smokescreen into joining the Decepticons. New toys of Dreadwing and Smokescreen, recolors of the Revenge of the Fallen stealth aircraft Mindwipe and Skystalker, were released exclusively at the Tokyo Toy Show in 2010, and they would later appear in these forms in the Transformers Legends manga. Also, a new figure of Dreadwing alone was released in the Transformers Generations line in 2013, a recolor of the Generations stealth bomber Megatron figure, which earned the character a supporting role in IDW's comics as a henchman for Shockwave. In 2003, the Generation 2 Dreadwing toy was recolored and re-released in the Robots in Disguise toy line as a new character. Here, Dreadwing was the name of the combined bomber form, made up of the larger Dreadwind, a big Decepticon with a love of destruction, and the withdrawn, meticulous Smokejumper. Another Dreadwing was introduced in 2004's Transformers Energon, an emotionless clone of Decepticon gunboat Mirage. And another in the Classics line in 2007, a Minicon Eagle who was all business. Also in 2007, the tie-in video game for the first live-action movie used Dreadwing as the name of a mass-produced Transformer drone that converted into a MiG-29 jet fighter, of which both Autobot and Decepticon varieties existed. A toy was released of the Decepticon version, given an individual personality as a bot who was a dim-witted, greedy sneak thief with delusions of grandeur, who liked using his power of teleportation to play pranks on his teammates. This individual Dreadwing enjoyed a notable role in the tie-in comic book Reign of Starscream, in which, backed by his army of drones, he staged a coup to seize Decepticon leadership, only to be destroyed by Starscream for his treachery. Easily the most significant new incarnation of Dreadwing in the 21st century thus far has been the version featured in Transformers Prime. Introduced in the show's second season in 2012, he was an intelligent and powerful explosives expert, fiercely loyal to the Decepticon cause, but with a warrior's sense of honor and integrity. Dreadwing was the twin brother of Skyquake, a Decepticon stationed on Earth who was destroyed by the Autobots. Sensing his brother's death from across the galaxy, Dreadwing came to Earth seeking revenge, and was quickly appointed Megatron's new second-in-command. In time, Dreadwing learned that Starscream had resurrected Skyquake as a mindless zombie, and his fury at this desecration of his brother's memory only grew when he discovered Megatron had tried to conceal the truth from him to prevent infighting among his men. Believing the Decepticon name itself disgraced by Megatron's ignoble actions, the disillusioned Dreadwing turned his back on his leader. He provided the Autobots with the resources they needed to thwart Megatron's current plans, then attempted to kill Starscream in revenge for his twin, forcing Megatron to kill him. With multiple figures in the Prime toy line, various appearances in tie-in media, and the fact that he's the only one to have appeared in an American cartoon, Prime Dreadwing might just be the most famous bot to have held the name, though only time will tell if he'll prove to be as enduring as those who have come before him. And those are the basics on Dreadwing. Many different bots, but which one's your favourite? Let me know in the comments. As always, be sure to like and subscribe for more history and lore from the world of the Transformers, and get early access to new episodes by supporting the series on Patreon.